Hello and good evening, everybody. Today is February 5th, 2024. It is podcast number 19, and we're talking about finding your voice. A lot of us, actually, everybody, struggles to find their voice in writing, in podcasting, in speaking, or whatever different kinds of content creation that you're into. Whatever it is, there's always a struggle. There's always a way for us to judge ourselves so that we either stop ourselves or harshly criticize our own selves so that we don't actually make much progress. And so today I'm going to be talking about finding your voice and what to expect and maybe some tidbits here and there for you to maybe overcome that challenge because it is a big challenge when you decide you want to, finally take the plunge and create content, whether it is writing, whether it's podcasting, or whether it's doing any kind of content creation, whether it's just speaking. There is a way for you to find your voice. Now, there are three things to consider when you're finding your voice for you to actually be certain about your voice and so that you can love your voice because that's truly what it is. You require authenticity for you to become successful at anything. You can't be a second version of someone so that you can become successful. You have to be the first version of yourself to be successful. And, this podcast is all about being successful, isn't it? That's what life is. Life is about being successful. I mean, what's the point of doing anything if it's not for success? In whichever way, shape, or form that you decide to define it. Now, as usual, the podcast is sponsored by Spinati Dentistry. Spinati Dentistry is located on Hyde Park, across from Tim Hortons at the intersection of Hyde Park and Sarnia Road. They are a cosmetic and family dental practice, and they are uber happy to see people like you who love their health. And even if you haven't been to the dentist in a while, come on in and experience a fantastic and fun dental environment. They've won a lot of accolades, such as the 2024 Consumer Choice Award and many others as well. I highly recommend them. Yes, it is my practice, but even if it wasn't, I would highly recommend Spinati Dentistry. Now, the three things that we're going to talk about. The first of which is quantity over quality. Quantity creates quality. It's not quantity over quality. It's quantity creates quality. The second point is the pain of suffering, okay, with finding your voice. And lastly, it's embracing your voice and how you can embrace it. So in terms of the first one, in terms of the quantity creates quality, this is probably one of the most difficult components out of the whole gamut of trying to find your voice or trying to embrace your voice, is that for us to continuously produce a lot of content. Now, you may look at someone else and you may do a little bit of, social comparison and find yourself in a pool of maybe people around you who are a lot better than you are in terms of, the way that they express themselves, how confident they are, the way that they sound, the thought process that they have, the quickness, the speed in which they come up with ideas. But what all of us who are starting out, what we don't see is the amount of hours that are spent in practice. Whether you've seen Michael Jackson, the late Michael Jackson, how much he practiced when he was a child and how much his father made him and his brothers practice. It would make you go a little bit crazy just watching the amount of times that they had to practice and practice and practice. It didn't come naturally, but you have to understand that when you start young, you have all the time in the world for you to devote specifically, your time and effort to that thing. So you have to really take that into consideration when you take the first point, which is quantity creates quality. Now, when you're, past your childhood and now you're in your 20s or 30s or even 40s or even 50s or even 60s, whatever age you're at, you have to consider that, it's literally the amount of quantity that you put out that's going to produce quality. Now, there are certain ingredients that you have to take into account when you do that. And one of them is feedback. So when you're putting out a lot of content, right? Whether it's writing. So let's say you're writing a lot of things. The first thing you have to do is you have to analyze how you're comparing to people that are expert in your field. So that is the first thing. That's the feedback. The second thing is to ask someone else to read your, whatever piece that you wrote, or to listen to your speech, or to listen to your podcast, or to look at your content, and to get as much feedback as possible. The more feedback that you get, the more that you're able to incorporate it into the next piece, and the more that loop continues, the faster that you will increase in your quality. Okay, so that's the first bit. So it's volume, feedback, in order for you to increase the quality. The second is the pain of suffering. Now, it is incredibly painful for you to watch yourself, or for you to hear yourself, or for you to read things that are not good. You can sense it, you can see it. But that is one of the hurdles. And that's one of the hurdles for literally like any business owner when they start something, is that they don't come in knowing everything. They come in with confidence, and they come in knowing that whatever it takes they're going to do. But there's a pain of ignorance that comes along the road of entrepreneurship. That's the whole point, is that when you start a business, when you start doing your content creation, there's this thing in your mind saying, well, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to hope it's going to work. So I'm going to do whatever it takes for it to work. But you don't actually know if it's going to work or not. So that's the pain of suffering. And you're going to experience that pain. And it's completely normal for you to have that pain. So the first thing is to produce as much as possible, but also take into consideration that feedback loop, right? From yourself and from other people. The second is to understand that pain, and the pain of suffering due to ignorance, is completely normal. Now, how do we amplify that pain? We amplify that pain, we make that pain a lot worse when we compare ourselves to other people, when we compare ourselves to how other people are, or even worse, when we compare ourselves to, or when we start thinking about what other people are going to say about our work, what other people are going to say about, the things that we're producing. And that itself is painful because of the social acceptance, right? We're human beings, social creatures, and we want to be accepted by other human beings. And so then when we start to compare our thoughts, or our kind of actions, or our content, with what we think other people are going to think about it, which in reality they don't think much about it, then that would really hamper us, and that would increase the pain, and then that would decrease the quantity, because we're going to feel demotivated. So it's going to decrease the quantity, and by default, you're going to decrease the quality. So that is the main thing that you should be really aware of, that no one really cares about your content, really. Like, if it's not good, no one's going to care about it. They're only going to care about it when it's, good, and then they can share it with other people, and that takes time. It takes a lot of quantity. Whether people are making fun of you or criticizing or whatever, nobody, and this should be taken as a rule, is that no one that is in your similar situation or higher than you will make fun of you or criticize you, period. Right? Only people that are under you, people that are jealous, people that know that they can't do it, people that don't have the gumption, the willpower, the risk tolerance for them to actually partake into the activities of them becoming better, of them producing content, they're the ones that are going to criticize. It's like basically when you're watching a game, whether a sports game or whatever kind of game you're watching, when you're watching a game, okay, you're going to be criticizing the players. So you're watching a hockey game, you're criticizing, oh, that guy should have done this, but the person on the ice is the person that's playing. They're the ones that understand the game more. And then, but you're going to hear all the people criticizing, well, they're not in the game. So this is part of it. That pain is part of it. So once you accept it, once you actually internalize and you say, okay, look, like, this is part of the process. This is what I'm expecting. This is it. You just roll with the punches. And the last, but certainly not least, is to embrace your own voice. Every single person has their own unique talents and unique ways of doing things. And talent really is, genetic, and it's not something that you can change. Skill is something that you can change. You take your talent and you amplify it with your skill, but every single person has their own voice. And so the best way for you to become authentic is to actually embrace your own voice and not to try to become someone else and not to try to emulate so much someone else so that you lose your own voice. I look at it from the point of a gym metaphor. Okay, so if you have you've got a frame, you've got your skeleton, you've got your whatever your anatomy for your muscles. Every single body is actually different. So if you work out the exact same way as someone else, your body is going to look different than someone else. But that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty. The beauty is in that difference. And so, but if you try to compare yourself so much with other people, oh, their content looks like this, mine looks like that, then you're not going to embrace your own voice. You're not going to embrace your own uniqueness. And then you won't be offering that to the world. And lastly, is control your breath. Because when we're in a state of panic, we don't actually produce our best results. So the best thing, and this is coming from voice coaches, the best thing for you to do is to control your breathing. Once you control your breathing, then you can actually project a voice, whether it's actually voice or written or whatever content that you're doing, is to control your breathing. So those are the three things. This is a very short podcast, but I thought it was relevant because even during my journey, and today is podcast number 19, even during my journey of producing all this content, I too am going through all of this, right? I am too am going through this and I'm saying, okay, well, that's very cringe. I shouldn't have said it like this. I can't even make out what I just said. Why am I pausing so much? Why didn't I know what I was saying? It looks like I don't know what I'm talking about, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of self-critiquing. But also, there's also a sense of seeing myself improve, video after video, because I watch the video, I listen to it without watching it. I just listen to it and then I watch it. And I tend to see, I'm like, okay, well, this could have been better by doing this bit. I could have said this better like this. I could have paused more. I could have paused less. Instead of saying this, I could have said that. So there's a lot of things that, yes, I critique myself, but I don't put myself down. I try to improve my ways. And you'll see that throughout my journey. Like I said, today's podcast number 19 on day 19. And I did promise myself after some time for me to do a 30-day sprint of podcasting every single day. And the challenges are exactly that, is that, I'm becoming more and more comfortable. I'm not 100% comfortable, but I'm becoming more and more comfortable with facing the camera. I'm becoming more and more comfortable with hearing my own voice in speaking. I'm becoming more comfortable in structuring a podcast, whether it's, a long podcast or a small one, and coming up with things on the go, on the fly. So coming up with ideas, structuring, giving myself into a framework of thinking so that I can think clearly as I'm talking, because that's a skill. I don't have everything written down. I have points written down, right? So it's not a script. And that's why sometimes I pause and sometimes I'm thinking, and then I come up with something else that I probably didn't have prior, but it falls in line with the points. I hope this helped. If you're in this journey, or if you're thinking about the journey of, finding your voice in whichever content creation form that you're thinking of, I encourage you to go for it, because at the end of the day, we all have one life. That's the truth of the matter. We all have one life. And if you don't use your life to the fullest and actually push yourself every single day, then you're going to get really old and you're going to look back and you're going to have regret set in. You probably already have regret set in from things you haven't done in the past. Now imagine if that's amplified 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And you're going to look back and say, I wish I had done this. I know I could have done better. Don't wait. Don't regret. Just do it and you'll thank yourself. Even by the end of 6 months or a year, you'll thank yourself for taking the plunge and taking the risk and being consistent in your production of content creation. Have yourself a good night. Stay well and always keep smiling.